Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you to the Nebraska Recycling Council board and members. It's a delight to be here. And what I wanted to do today is tell you a little bit more about the work of Closed Loop Partners, why we exist, and what our vision is for what the future can look like, and share with you some of the insights that we've gained over the last couple of years as an investor in recycling infrastructure across North America. So Closed Loop Partners started about 3 years ago as Closed Loop Fund. We're a fairly unique investor. We provide below market rate loans to both municipalities and private recycling companies. Our investment started from the need of large brand owners and retailers. So a group of folks, including Walmart, Procter & Gamble, Unilever, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, all got together to say, we need a better recycling infrastructure in the United States to deal with a lot of the packaging waste that's going to landfill today. These companies are not necessarily in it for any one reason, but one of the primary reasons that we exist and what has been the basis of our model is that more of that packaging waste could become recycled content used as new packaging and many other products and packages that we use in our lives as consumers, as residents, and as businesses. So we started with the fund. Shortly after, as we were making our investments, realized that there were lots of innovative ideas that we would love to be investing in, but they were too early stage for the type of debt that we were providing, so we started Closed Loop Ventures, and that's backed by a number of family offices and high net worth individuals. And then we also started Closed Loop Foundation, and this is kind of our R&D arm where we are able to provide grants and do research that isn't generating any type of financial return, but we believe is important to learn more about what solutions could exist in the future to help the system improve. So to the vision part, why this is important and why the work that you all are doing is so important. A lot of the challenge of what we face today as we think about the way that all of our materials go through a life cycle, if you will, is that we're relying on a linear approach to our supply chains. That we're extracting resources from the ground or from our forests, we produce a product, it goes to the consumer, it's maybe used once, gets collected and ends up in a hole in the ground. And that actually costs us a lot of money. I was sitting in on one of the sessions earlier this morning, and the conversation towards the end got to be a lot about how cheap it was to put things in the ground. Definitely true, but what's missing is all that lost value of material that can be recycled, that has a market today, and it's not being extracted. That benefit is being lost, and it's municipalities by and large who are bearing the brunt of that burden. Nationally, it's about, in today's commodities market, it's about $4 billion of landfill tip fees that you could be avoiding and commodities revenue that you could be realizing. This is a model that we feel is not sustainable. And so when we think about the work that we do and the vision for the future that we would like to see, we aspire to close the loop on packaging waste and post-consumer waste primarily. So we want to see a future in which consumers have convenient access to recycling services wherever they are for all the materials that they need to use, that material gets collected, and that there are efficient, productive ways to sort that material. There are processors that have capacity nearby to process that material and in a way that can be used for a variety of end uses that create value throughout the system. If we were able to do that across the whole country, we would be able to provide access to 30 million more households. You would see 80 million more tons annually that is generated, diverted from landfill and brought to commodities markets. That means $7 billion of additional revenue and more than 200 million metric tons of greenhouse gas reduction. That innovation in processing, which we desperately need right now, could then unlock any type of manufacturing that you could think of, really, if we thought about all the products and material types that we could be using, and impact revenues today in that manufacturing sector in the US of more than $2 trillion. It's a really big, ambitious vision, but we think that we are on a path to get there. If you don't believe me, you can also go to other folks like the EPA. This is Region 4 just released their Vision for 2030 framework for what sustainable materials management looks like. And that includes a lot of this kind of idea of circularity, and at the very least, bridging or bending the line, if you will, from a municipal solid waste system on one hand, and the waste on one hand, and markets and end uses that really recreate value for a product that currently is not treated as product but as waste. So I'm not going to spend too much time here, but just to illustrate that our investments are going throughout the system by and large, and there are many examples that I wanted to share with you today, but we're just getting started. So we started deploying money 2 years ago, and in the first 2 years have deployed about $30 million to 14 projects. And within those projects, many of them are just on the path to launching their programs, whether it's putting more carts on the street. Waterbury, Connecticut did that just this week. Whether it's putting more trucks on the road, it could be upgrading MRF, it could be adding new processing capacity for glass or for post-consumer plastics. All of that is starting to happen, and in that first 2 years, we've started to divert 250,000 tons, and we'll be increasing that over the coming years. That material is representing 1.5 million households already, and the municipalities are already starting to see the benefits of that. So, as I said, about half of our portfolio is going to municipalities directly, and they've already started to see the benefit in terms of landfill tip fee savings, even in markets where landfill tip fees are low as they are in Nebraska, and benefit from revenue shares in commodities markets. Imagine a map of the United States. Our deals are happening across the country right now. I would say not as much west of the Mississippi as I would like to see. I live out in California. But there are certainly, every day we're looking at new opportunities to improve the infrastructure in many different ways. And I'll talk about a few of those. So I wanted to share a few of the key points on what we've learned from our portfolio so far, because I think hopefully they will start to pave a road for you to think about, can we achieve this crazy idea of circular economy? How do we do it? So from some of the things that we've learned, I think one of the most important things that I think we all need to keep in mind, whether you are in the private sector or in the public sector, is it has to make sense economically. We live in a world in which if it costs too much, even if you're willing to make that investment in the near term, in the long term, there are too many excuses for why you don't want to continue that. So for us, when we look at our opportunities as an investor, we help municipalities to see where do the economics make sense, and how do we make sure that we're always driving towards a shared value opportunity that's creating both environmental and public benefit, as well as financial and economic benefit. One example of that, or two examples that I can share. One is in Scott County, which is on the Iowa side of the Quad Cities area, where their waste commission is a municipally run agency. Their board is the municipalities they serve. They had to make a decision about whether they wanted to shut down the MRF and go with a private operator, turn their MRF into a transfer station and have somebody else take up the MRF side of it, or own and operate their MRF, but expand it so they could increase their ability to divert more material. They chose the final option, so they expanded their MRF, working with the cities of Bettendorf and Davenport, put carts on the street for all of their residents, went to single stream. They just celebrated their first anniversary in August, And in that first year, they've been able to increase participation rates to over 60%. Their MRF, now that they're fully operating and functional, has increased by more than 200% the amount of material that they're seeing, because suddenly all the other municipalities in the area are realizing, oh, there's a better option for our recycling. They do a tremendous revenue share with those municipalities as well. So it's been a real success story, and kudos to the team there, because they're just incredible, incredible folks. Council Bluffs also, just so you know, for the smaller, less ambitious folks, also an option. So Council Bluffs is, I'm sure you know, is just on the Iowa side of Omaha. And they just needed a baler for their transfer station so that they could move material more efficiently. And that, in and of itself, has a benefit that we believe is an important part of just keeping infrastructure in smaller communities more productive. Another thing that's really important to think about is the role of public leadership and commitment to recycling. So, City of Memphis for years had the idea that they should do more recycling. Their residents wanted it. They had started a pilot program, but nothing really got going until a new mayor came in and said, we need to do recycling. And it's going to be one of my priorities in the first 100 days of my administration. Mayor Strickland made it a priority, but also said it's got to make economic sense, by the way. And so with those two pieces together, and in partnership with the local recycling facility, they were able to roll out a program that hit all of the households in the city of Memphis. And they're just approaching their 1-year anniversary as well. It's been a real opportunity for the city to generate savings and revenues, and it's also been a real benefit to the MRF as well. I wanted to also just share a little bit about the end market side of the story. So I don't know how many out here are on that end market side, but using post-consumer recycled material is a critical piece of our success in making the system work. So one of the investments that we've made out in Colorado that if I've had a chance to talk to you today, I may have mentioned it. I find myself telling this story a lot, is in momentum recycling, which is taking glass from municipal recycling programs in the Denver region and turning that into bottle quality cullet, a container quality cullet. That's about 85% of their material. And then also taking the stuff that can't be used for bottles and making that into fiberglass and abrasives. So they're selling to all three of those markets, and that business model, where his priority, the CEO John Lair's priority at Momentum, is to divert as much as possible, is turning into a successful business model for that region. And that state, we expect, will go from a 6% recycling rate of glass to 60% in the coming years. Finally, one thing I wanted to talk about that isn't about investing capital at all, but has a lot to do with the success of many of these projects and partnerships, is around the contracting that happens between municipalities and the hauler or the recycling facility. That's about the opportunity and how much access you have to that. So how can we create incentives through a contracting agreement, through sustaining the relationships over a longer term that really makes sense for the whole system? So one of the big challenges on the processing side is that they sit in between a municipal solid waste situation where the municipalities have contracts that last 10 plus years, and then the manufacturing side where they can only produce that material on a spot market. So we think a lot about how the players in the system can generate value for each of them along the way, and make sure that everyone can really grow and succeed under the contracts that exist. I wanted to share just a quick on the horizon type of project that we've been working on. This is Sedalia, Missouri. The population is fairly small. It's a community of 7,000 households, And right now, recycling is collected curbside in whatever container the owner decides to put out on the street. So it could be a cardboard box, it could be a bag. They don't have the infrastructure there, and their diversion today is about 6%. With an investment, and this is a combination of funding that is likely to come from a variety of sources from the state, from grant funds, from the Recycling Partnership, whom I'll talk about a little bit more in just a second, and hopefully with closed loop support as well. That goal for the community of Sedalia will be to increase diversion to 25%. And that will also generate enough savings and revenue opportunity for them that investment makes sense from an economic perspective, from a community perspective. This is really an opportunity that it's challenging for this small community. Their material is going 75 miles away to their MRF, but this is one that we see as a real opportunity and a way that with the right pieces in place, we think can make a difference. So I'm not here to sell anybody alone, but I just want people to know the resources that are available. Closed Loop Fund aims to invest $100 million by 2025. And we are always looking to address specific bottlenecks around the country, including substandard recycling infrastructure in recycling deserts or areas where there isn't a concentration typically thought of for the system to invest in. In addition to our funding, we also work in partnership quite often with the Recycling Partnership, which is a nonprofit organization that serves communities nationally with tools and training. They provide a lot of educational resources, toolkits that communities can use to reach their residents. They can also help with the planning for a lot of these programs, and they also give grants. So they've been a great partner with this. And I think I would just echo what has been the theme of the day, in that collaboration is so absolutely key to all of the work that we're doing. We would love to see more partners in this space as we think about how to create better system solutions in every community around the country. So thank you very much.